Hello and welcome everyone to this chess game review entitled Chess Piece Safety. So this was a club game that I played at the local chess club recently. A pretty interesting game. My opponent played well. We both played, in the 70% accuracy level, and the game was pretty even. Let's see here. It looks like they had one great move. I had four, but they had 21 best moves. I had 19. They made 8 excellent moves versus 6 for me. And then I had 8 good moves. They had 7. We only played 2 book moves because I tried to set up that hippopotamus defense with the white pieces, and so it was kind of the opening went into a little awkward variation. So as far as inaccuracies and moves that we could have improved on, I had 6 inaccuracies versus their 4. I had 6 mistakes. They had 9. I had 4 misses and they had 3, but I had a blunder. So that's where the chess piece safety definitely comes in to play. And also I've been changing the board colors here, so leave a comment if you don't like this board color or if you do like it, whatever. So let's go over this game. I had the white pieces and I was playing against Chris, and I start to try and set up the hippopotamus defense where you fianchetto both bishops. So I start on the king side here, and then let me put the analysis on here so we can see what's going on. All right, so they just develop in the center, pushing this pawn, kind of blocking the scope of my bishop. Now they develop their knight. So now, with the hippopotamus defense, a lot of times the computer will say, oh, you should have done, some other moves. It doesn't really like this opening, I don't think. So I get ready to fianchetto the other bishop. And they just take control of the center here. So e5, that's the best move. I attack this knight, and they protect it with the bishop. So now they have their pieces developed here. They're ready to castle. So I go ahead and push this d pawn, but it says the e3 pawn push would have been better, which I'm about to do next anyway. So here they play c6, and the computer says that's an inaccuracy, that it would have been better to just push this h pawn right away. But if they're getting ready to castle over there, they probably don't want to do that. Now, why would that be a good reason to push this pawn? Well, it could try and move down here to h4 and just start attacking and try and pry open this king side. So that's the reason it wants to push this h4, and then it'll activate the rook. Maybe the queen and knight can all get involved down here and start an attack going. All right, so I play e3, and once again, this is just part of the hippopotamus defense setup, although it's usually a black defense, but I was using it with the white pieces. And as I said before, the computer doesn't like some of these opening moves. But for this hippopotamus defense, you're trying to fianchetto both bishops, push both of your center pawns one square, and then you'll bring your knights in behind them, and then play h3 and a3, and you set up a defensive structure to try and keep everything out, and you wait and see what your opponent does. So they castle, although it says they should have gained more space with this c6 pawn push, or sorry, the c6 pawn to c5, and then they can bring their knight in behind it. Right now that pawn's kind of blocking the knight. So I develop my knight. They push forward here, and the computer says that's a mistake. Once again, it wants this h5 pawn push to start an attack on the king side. So now, since they've done this, I wasn't ready to start opening up the center yet. I still wanted to play h3 and a3 and get my other knight developed. But the computer says the best move to put the game, slightly in white's favor is to capture here, to capture this e pawn. So let's take a look at that. So if we capture, then it looks like their best move is to capture with the pawn, and then we would just play knight to d2, attacking, with the bishop and the knight here, and then they would have to defend with this f pawn, and then it looks like we would just castle next, and the computer prefers that over what we played in the game. So let's go back to the game action and see what actually occurred here. All right, so instead of attacking there, I make a mistake by pushing this pawn, and now it says it is 1.63 in black's favor here, so it did not like that move at all. And now it says once again the best move is this h5 pawn push here. Continuing on, they play c5, and it says that's a miss, that they should have pushed h5 right away. So we might as well take a look at this h5 move here. Let's take a look at it. So h5, then they want h3, which is normally what you do in the hippo defense anyway. So now it's saying h4, just pushing forward, is the second best move, but it prefers knight to a6 to develop this knight, then push it back over here to c7, and then from there you can develop it up to e6 and get it over to the king side to help attack. If you push to h4, interesting. It recommends you just ignore it instead of pushing your pawn forward and push this c pawn over here. All right, but in the game, let's get back to the action here. Where were we? So back in this position, when they pushed this pawn forward, we pushed forward to keep things closed until I finished development, but the computer didn't like that. So now we have c5, so they want to attack with this less valuable flank pawn. They want to attack the more valuable center pawn and try and trade that off. So the computer, of course, wanted that h5 move. Now we follow up with a miss. The game could have gone back into white's favor if we would have captured that pawn. If we capture this pawn and then they capture back, of course, well, now it looks like we can just go ahead and castle. Looks like that's the best move. And then the computer wants them to retreat back here to e7. Interesting. So if they retreat back, then it looks like the best thing to do is just follow up with developing your knight up here to d2, and then get ready to push this pawn up here to c4. Try to attack this backwards pawn in the center. Okay, so after d4, c5 attacking, we move up here to c3, and I was just trying to defend this d pawn. If they capture, we can recapture and have two central pawns. But it looks like it would be better to probably capture with the knight and leave a hole here where we can put pressure on this backwards pawn. But in the game, we continue with black playing knight to c6, and the computer says that's an inaccuracy. They should have just captured right away here. So we would have capture, and now the best thing is to capture with the knight like this, because then you have a hole here and a half open file, and you can start lining up on this backwards pawn here and try and put pressure down this d file. Let's see. Here they recommend bishop to g4, and then you play queen to c2 because the bishop would be under attack. Or excuse me, the bishop would be attacking the queen, and the queen would have to move over here to c2. Let's see. All right, so now in the game, we had this c3 move to protect the center. So they just put more pressure on that pawn, but really they're just developing their knight here, and the computer wanted this immediate capture of the pawn. So now we play a3, and that's a miss. I was just trying to keep the knight or the bishop from moving here. The bishop checking my king, the knight jumping in here, and then possibly jumping into this outpost here on d3. I wanted to prevent that. Now, let's see what was best instead of that. It said we should have just captured up here. It looks like the best move is to capture this pawn. They would recapture, so capture, capture, and then let's see, just going ahead and castling next would be the best thing to do. All right, so back to where we were in the game. a3 is played. What do they do next? They play this, bishop to g4. Now this is a mistake. It looks like capturing in the center would be best here. And then we play h3, an inaccuracy. It would have been better for us to capture here. And once again, as I said, leave this half open file and put pressure on that d pawn. So next, they retreat, and that is a mistake. So let's take a look at that. It's saying bishop to f3, to try and get rid of this, or this looks crazy, capturing and letting that bishop under attack. So now, let's say you capture, then they need to capture this way, and then then f4 it looks like, or f3 are both good. All right, let's say we go all the way up to there. Well, then they're going to capture en passant. We're going to capture, and then they're going to have knight to e5, attacking our bishop and this pawn with both. So this would have been crazy. This would have just left me wide open here in the center of the board. Because of that, it looks like castling would have been best. And now I castled into some Swiss cheese over here. It looks like that's my king side is not looking too good here. So now, let's see. The best move, it says, is to capture this way. And then I should go ahead and capture. They capture, and now I capture this pawn in the center. But black is ahead here, of course, because of my wide open king. And now queen to b6. So to break this pin, it's not really a pin, but I was lined up on his queen. And now it's saying bishop captures on g3 would have been better. But anyway, you get the idea. I would be just wide open there. So in the game, we had h3. They retreated back. And then we have, let's see, knight to d2, and that's a miss. That, once again, capturing on c5 is the best move. So we play that. They move rook to c8. And once again, they want this capture here. We haven't really got to piece safety. I mean, I guess the whole game you need to watch out for piece safety. But what I wanted to talk about in this game as far as chess piece safety is before you make a move, ask yourself first if your king is safe. If what you're doing, if that will leave your king exposed, or if your king will be able to come under attack with a check and then a follow-up attack. Also, once you find out your king is safe, we'll take a look here. So let me go back and I'll explain it as we look at these moves. So they just moved rook to c8, and it looks like c takes d4 once again would have been better. So now I castle, and it says best once again is to just capture here. So let's see. All right, I'm not going to play that out because we already kind of looked at what would happen if I capture. So now it's black's turn. If he's going to factor in piece safety before he moves, he should ask himself, if his next move is finally to capture here in the center, will that move leave his king exposed? Well, no. His king is pretty safe over here, castled and barricaded behind pawns and his knight, and his bishops even over here. Next, he should ask, well, are all my pieces safe? Do I have any that are not protected? But if we look at all his pieces, and not the pawns yet, but your actual chess pieces, the knights and bishops, queen, rook. So all of those are protected. There's no surprise attack. I mean, we could push this pawn up here, but the bishop would retreat here to safety. Then the knight could be attacked if the pawns kept pushing, but the knight has room to retreat. So now that you've made sure all the pieces are safe, then look at your pawns. All right, well, are any of the pawns under attack, or could be attacked? The only one is here. These two pawns, the D pawn and C pawn, attacking each other. So before you make a move, this can save you a lot of blunders. Ask yourself, is my king safe? If your king is good, are your pieces safe? Once they're all safe, are your pawns safe? So once you're sure your king, pieces, and pawns are safe, well, then you can look at your opponent's king, pieces, and pawns and see if you have an attack on any of them, or any of them unprotected. So right now, this one's unprotected here, this bishop. Let's see. Other than that, everything looks safe. The king, unless there's some crazy sacrifice. Now we have this pin by the bishop of the knight pinned to the queen. So, that could be a threat. But anyway, by doing that, asking yourself if your pieces are safe, your king, your pieces, your pawns, that'll kind of help prevent a lot of blunders. So finally, black goes ahead and captures here in the center. And so it looks like the best way is to capture with the C pawn. So now the C file's open. We both have two central pawns. The center's locked up here. So now we have queen to b6. An inaccuracy. The computer wanted this knight to retreat, and then from there maybe jump down over here to the king side to help with an upcoming attack on white's king. So after queen to b6, white is going to ask, is the king safe? Yeah, it looks safe. Are the queens, or excuse me, are the pieces all safe? Well, we could attack over here with our pawn. We have to watch out for this lining up on us. So, but we'll get to that when it's our turn to check out what moves to make. All right, so it looks like their king is safe. All their pieces are safe. They do have an unprotected bishop now, but there's no immediate way to get to that. Their pawns are all protected. So now our king, pieces, our bishop's not protected, and that's probably why he moved his queen here to line up on this bishop, and also maybe bring this knight down here and start putting pressure on this pawn. So now white moves, and this is the best move according to the computer, is to attack the bishop here. And so the bishop retreats, and now it looks like b4 would be best here, followed by knight to f4, attacking this bishop, trying to knock out the bishop pair. So in the game, we did neither of those. We played here knight to c3, and that was an inaccuracy. It actually wanted knight to f4, which knight to f4. I mean, I don't know. That still looks kind of rough, because if we move knight to f4 and they capture us here, we would recapture, and this pawn would be weak, but we would have a threat of pushing forward here and trapping their bishop. So I guess that's the tactic that would save us. So we could take a look at that. So if we go here, and black should ask, okay, well, before I move, is my king safe? Yes, nothing can get up there. Are my pieces safe? Well, this bishop is under attack, so we could lose that bishop. And so what do we want to do about that? Is there anything that we could do? Well, even if they make an escape route for that bishop to move back, it would be too late. The knight's ready to attack. So here, black could ask, well, all right, my king's safe, my pieces are relatively safe, except this bishop under attack, and my pawns are good, this pawn's protected. Although if this pawn pushes forward here, chasing the knight away, the knight could attack. So do we need to do something about this knight? And then they might think, well, if I capture this knight, it'll break apart the center pawns, and then this one would become weak. So they capture here. And then, we would recapture. And now, if they're thinking about capturing this, they should once again check for piece safety. All right, is the king safe? Yes, there's nothing that can get up there to the king at the moment. Are there any unprotected pieces? No. Are all the pawns safe? Yes, they look safe. All right, now we have to also look for threats. Are there any tactics? And hopefully you would see that there's a possible tactic coming here of pushing this pawn and trapping the bishop in here. So, if you take a look for any tactical surprises by your opponent quickly, hopefully you'll find that, and not try and go after this pawn that looks, like Oh, it's okay. I mean, I guess you could do that. The computer recommends, um, actually, it recommends E3 here, which is pretty interesting. E3, and then just capturing that pawn. Then you would have a backwards pawn here, and it would give this bishop some room, but I don't know. We could take a look at that, but let's see what happens. That capture. Oh, now the bishop would jump in. Well, it wouldn't want to go here, or it could be captured by the knight. But it looks like here attacking the rook. But it would give you time to let this bishop escape somewhere by giving up that pawn. White would be slightly ahead, though. All right, so back to where we were. You're thinking about capturing this. So just take a quick look at what the position would look like after you captured this. And your knight would be here. If they're thinking about attacking, you'd have to watch out for this move. So let's see, what would play out here. Looks like best would be to just go ahead and capture that. And then the queen would capture. And now, pretty crazy. Well, not too crazy. It wants you to capture here and attack their queen. So you'd either come out a pawn ahead, or, I mean, we could take a look at this, but this is some crazy tactics. The second best move is to trap that bishop. So this move apparently is even better because the queen is under attack. This would be a brilliant move. The queen should capture here, but before you capture this queen back, you have a, what is this called? A in-between move, a Zwischenzug, I think, where you play this first before capturing that queen. And then, if they capture here, well, now you've wrecked their pawns on the king side, and then you can, I don't know, go ahead and capture with either rook, and you're attacking this, putting pressure on that pawn. So, I don't know, pretty interesting. And once again, you're still threatening here to trap that bishop again. All right. Let's get back to the game before I get way off on a tangent. So I moved up here, knight to c3 in the game. And now we have this knight retreat. I guess going back here to put an extra guard with both of these knights on this pawn in case I push forward and chase this knight away, then that knight will be able to protect it. So it says that's excellent, but even better would have been to just push the pawn forward so that this pawn can't move forward or it would just be captured. So now we had g5 chasing this knight anyway, but now it's saying that this is an inaccuracy. There's no use to do that now. You're just kind of weakening the king side. Better would have been to just develop my rook onto this open file here and fight for the c file. All right, so they moved their knight there, but it looks like it would have been better to leave it over here on the king side, or maybe in the future it could jump in on the king side, after some pawns are attacked, or later in the game. So b4 is played in the game, trying to get a lock on this the c5 square. Maybe jump a knight up here and jump it into c5. So that was what my thinking was. And now we have f5 being played by the opponent. So, is their king safe? Yes, for the moment, their king is still pretty safe here. What about their pieces? Can we attack any pieces? Um, what about their pawns? Well, we can capture en passant here by taking this G pawn and moving it on to F6 and capturing this F5 pawn. Um, and it says that the best move, though, is F4, which I believe that's what we played in the game. And instead of that move, instead of pushing their F pawn, it looks like the best thing to do is just to retreat this bishop back to B8. And then try and set up a mating threat down through this diagonal with the bishop and queen battery and try and mate over here. Which, this attack is coming here shortly in the game. All right, so that was played. We go ahead and block there. But now they can capture en passant. So they do that. And then here I wasn't sure which way to capture. I have the option of capturing with the rook, the bishop, the knight, the queen. It looks like the knight capture would have been best, which makes sense because this knight is way back here on the second rank. At least here I could have jumped it forward, protected this pawn, and I don't know, it just looks like that would have been a better move. And by having a knight here, you can cover this H2 square, in case of this queen and bishop mating threat. But I attacked with the queen, wanting to connect my rooks and get this queen up here, towards the king side, where maybe I could start pushing this pawn, up the board and try and get something going over here. All right, so now, also, it looks like I was putting pressure on this D pawn with the knight, the bishop, the queen, but they're able to cover that with bishop to F7, which is the best move, and that's what they played. Although now it's saying moving the queen back to D8 is best. I guess it didn't want maybe the attack on the queen. But in the game, we just move up another knight here. Looks like queen to F2 would have been better. All right, so G6 is played, and the computer says this is a mistake, and now the game is slightly, just a hair in white's favor, 0.03 here. So better would have been what? Bishop to B8. Just backing the bishop up here and getting ready to create a battery and try and attack down the this diagonal and threaten a mate. Well, now it wouldn't be a mate because the king could escape, but you'd have a possible attack going here. So now we have this move, G6. And I follow up with this, although it wants the rook to move up here. And then I guess you could swing the rook over, try and double your rooks up. All right, so finally they play this move, retreating their bishop back, maybe doubling up here and trying to get a threat going down this file here. All right. So we put a knight on the rim where it's dim over here, and it says that's a mistake. Better would have been to bring the knight the other way down here towards the center. All right, so the queen creates a battery here, getting ready to threaten, and this is where I make a blunder on my next move here. So the best move would be to jump this knight up here, and then let's see, we would have capture, and then to capture with this pawn would have been best. And then we have a queenside pawn majority of 3 versus these 2 in the endgame, so that could be an endgame advantage. And we've opened up the diagonal here directly into the king side for our bishop. But even with all this, it looks like black would have a 1-point advantage after a check here. The king would be forced to move up here, and then d4. So that's an interesting move with a discovered attack on our knight here. So, when tactics come into play, then you definitely want to watch out for chess piece safety, and pawn safety. Just double check everything. King first, then your pieces, then your pawns, and make sure they're all safe. All right, it's getting a little dark in here, so let me turn this light on. And now hopefully the glare's not too bad on my glasses. Okay, I'm going to try and finish this up. This video, once again, is dragging out pretty long. So this is what could have happened here. This discovered attack on the knight. And now we have, looks like knight captures is best. But now we have this interesting move here of bishop to d5, which would be a great move, attacking our queen. And, what do we do here? Looks like a counterattack with rook to h1 is best. And then queen retreating all the way back like this, and now queen to f4. And actually it's even saying the queen could have moved to e5, and that could have been the best move. But anyway, queen here, and then it looks like they could capture if they wanted, but that's not the best move. Queen to d7 is better because now we're attacking the queen. And let's see, bishop takes d5 check. Anyway, this is a bunch of wild, crazy tactics. We trade there, and now queen to f3, rook at c to e8, but you get the picture. Black is pretty safe over here, but white is once again hanging out in the wind here a little bit. So, what do we have? Okay, back to the game. I'll try and finish this up. So knight to a4. Black creates this battery, threatening an attack here. So I play a blunder. Now, I should have asked myself, once I move here, is my king safe? Yeah, it's pretty safe now. What about my pieces? Do I have any that are unprotected? Well, both of these knights are unprotected here, so that could be an issue. What about pawns? The pawns are protected. But this knight, both of these knights are unprotected. Is there a way that the enemy could attack these? So it looks like there is. The best move, and as soon as I remember in the game, as soon as I moved here, because when I was calculating earlier, I thought it would probably not be a good idea to move here, because if the queen moves, the bishop would be attacking me. And I thought, if I stayed back where I was, it would be okay if my king came under attack here, because I could escape here, and then my king could run off to the side if it needed to, or into the center. But let's see here. In the game, I neglected piece safety here. I didn't make sure that my pieces were protected. And when I made the move, I didn't look for, do a quick tactical check. And I would have found this. I remember seeing it like a few moves earlier. But then at this point, we were trying to finish this game and get it moving along. And I don't know. I just played too quickly, I guess, and left this good move open for my opponent. And actually, it's saying to capture here first, capture the rooks, capture, and then move over here and attack the knight. So anyway, we'll look at what they should have done. Capture is best. And then queen to a6 here. So now best would be just to go ahead and looks like retreat here to f3, and then your knight that would be in trouble here, just left under attack. And now knight to c5 would be best. But you get the picture. At this point, black would be more than 3 points ahead, and that extra piece should be enough to win the game. All right, in the game, let's see what actually happened. After my blunder here, my opponent played a missed opportunity here, attacking my knight. So as soon as I moved my queen, I realized it was bad, and I thought, oh, well, since they didn't take advantage of that, I need to just trade these queens off, which looks like that's the best thing to do. And now the game is even here. So they recapture, and now knight. Well, this is interesting. It's saying knight at b to c5 is good. Is better than moving this knight, which is under attack. So I guess that's because we would be attacking this unprotected knight here. So this is why piece safety is so important. Look and see what is protected and not protected. Are there any unprotected pieces? And if there are, that can lead to tactics, especially game-winning tactics. So king first. The king is still safe here, barricaded in. What about pieces? Well, we have an unprotected bishop and an unprotected knight here in the center. And that, it looks like, is why we could play this knight on the b file here to c5 and leave this one unprotected, because we would be attacking this knight over here. And now let's see what the other option is, to just go ahead and trade off rooks. But of course I move the other knight, and it says that is a mistake, and now it's back in black's favor again. And it's actually saying it would have been better to retreat that knight. But I wanted to go forward here, and now we have, let's see, knight to b6. So I guess that lets my opponent threaten to jump into this outpost. And now, let's see, knight to d2 is the best move, to retreat back and keep, if that knight jumps into this outpost, you can capture. So in the game, that's what I did, although here it's recommending c3 as being better, which I guess that makes sense. Yeah, because that would keep an eye on that knight as well. But anyway, in the game, we had this, jumping down here, getting ready to jump up to the h4 square and threaten this unprotected pawn. So my opponent did a good job here checking for piece safety and pawn safety. He found out that this pawn is unprotected here, and now if the bishop jumps here, This pawn, of course, cannot move up to protect it because it'll be picked off. So now I'm thinking, oh great, this pawn is going to come under attack. I have to watch out for this knight. So I end up playing this move, rook to c3, which it looks like that was the best move to play because it frees up this knight to jump over here and the bishop to move down here to cover the knight when it jumps into this outpost. So we have an attack. The knight moves over here to protect and attack the bishop, and it looks like that is the best move. It says it's a great move. So the best move is to retreat back, of course, and save your bishop. And now I jump back to see what they do. And we could have had a draw just going back and forth, but my opponent instead jumps in here. And it looks like the best move would be to retreat the bishop back here. And I don't know, I didn't really look at that. I just immediately played the second best move, just attack. Now it's saying that's the best move. And then my opponent captures with the D pawn, which keeps the game even. It looks like it would have been better to capture with the B pawn. So we have a capture, and the computer, I guess, is unsure. Now it's saying the D pawn was best to capture with. So they have a passed pawn here, but we have a passed pawn on the D file. And I push this pawn. It says this is best with a discovered attack on the unprotected piece. So once again, piece safety. This unprotected bishop, what else is going on in the position? The king is still safe. Unprotected pieces, we have a knight and a bishop here. So we push this pawn and attack this bishop, and then maybe we could clear out this file and go after this unprotected knight. But if we captured here, the knight would probably just jump forward down closer into the action. So they push here with f4, and that's a mistake, protecting their bishop. It looks like it would have been better to go after the pawn again. So let's take a look at that. And now it's saying bishop to c7 would have been better. So let's see. If they do this, I could just bring my bishop down here and protect, I guess. Although it's saying to move this over to here. All right. Or even d5. Just ignore this pawn over here. Which I guess if he captures that, it'll kind of leave some open or half open files up towards the king. And we could maybe put pressure there. All right, well, let's see what actually happened. But this is what it recommended, just going after that pawn. In the game, we had, after e4, discovered attack on the bishop. They play f4, protecting their bishop. And now, this also leaves the possibility of jumping up here and attacking one of the pieces. So they move to here, attacking the knight, which is best, and then maybe getting ready to capture this pawn. But now, is the king safe? Well, at the moment, no, because our knight can jump over here, and this was the best move according to the computer, and check the king. So now our knight is on a pretty decent outpost here on f6, harassing the king. It looks like king to g7 is the best move, and that's what my opponent played, because now he can threaten to push this h-pawn and attack the defender of my knight. So it looks like d5 here is best. Let's see. All right, so it looks like that's what I played in the game. This pawn was under attack, so I protect the pawn by pushing it forward, and now this one backs it up. And so now they attack this pawn. It looks like that's the best way to do it, even better than pushing this pawn down here. And now, let's see. It looks like the best move would be to take your rook on the c file and just move it over here and double up the rooks. Alright, so what did I play? In this game, I tried to play some tactics and captured their h-pawn over here, pulling their king away from the defense of the rook, but that was a mistake or an inaccurate move. So here, it looks like the best thing is to double up my rooks, let them capture this pawn, and now this pawn is protected, and then jump with, well, now it's even saying to push forward here and attack this bishop. So after knight to g4, we have king to f8. And then, oddly enough, it wants us to push the h-pawn next and give that up. I guess to go after, so if we push this h-pawn, then if the bishop captures, well, then we can capture over here and have our doubled rooks aiming up this f-file. So tricky tactical stuff going on here. And by moving our knight here, there's a discovered attack on the king. And so the king would have to move over here to f8. So anyway, another instance where you need to check for piece safety, king safety, and it can avoid a lot of blunders and mistakes by doing that. So in the game, if we go back here a little bit, go back to the back earlier here. So we go up here and attack the rook. They move and attack us. We attack their king. The king comes down. Now we push our pawn, which was under attack, and they attack our pawn, which is protecting our knight. So I played this, which is a mistake. White is still ahead by half a pawn's worth of material according to this, but I thought, well, I'll capture, then I'll show you what I did in the game. And they had an opportunity where that wouldn't have worked, so it would have kept the game even. So capture, and now I capture, which is best. I'm forking this bishop and this bishop. So in the game, they just captured this pawn, attacking my rook. I captured here, checking their king, and we'll see how the game ended after that. But it looks like it would have been better instead to go ahead, let's see, with this knight to f5 move that I didn't even think about, and this keeps the game a lot closer. White is just barely ahead after this. So here, the best thing to do would be to capture the knight, and then bishop captures, attacking the rook, and then pawn captures with check, bishop captures. Yeah, this would have been crazy. It's still showing white is slightly ahead here. And then rook to g4, attacking the unprotected piece. And now this, lining up on the rook. So the rook would move over here, and now they're lining up on this bishop. But then we would have bishop captures, and not rook captures here, But instead, let's see, bishop to e4, putting pressure on that. And so, or did I get that right? Bishop to bishop to e4. And now they don't want to capture here. It looks like you should check first. Man, yeah, this is nuts. But, you know, the game didn't go like that. This is pretty crazy tactical stuff going on. You know, and then they would check us here. And white is still ahead in all this, even though they're behind by a bishop for now. Let's see. But they only have one move. Something like that. Man. Then they have rook to f2. Check. Now king to e1 or d1. Rook to e8. e8. Man, counter, like pinning here, pinning this bishop. Then we would have a check. King to g8. Now this one would be pinned. We would capture. I don't know why they wouldn't have gone here. You know, and well, it wouldn't matter. They couldn't have captured this anyway because the bishop is protecting it, and he'd be in check. So king to f7. Anyway, so I've gone off, like way off into this crazy possible line that the game could have gone. So after this fork of both bishops in the game, instead of just capturing and attacking my rook, we could have had this crazy sequence with this knight jumping down in here and just blocking the attack here, protecting this one, giving itself up. We would capture it, but then the game would just go crazy. So, you know, study those tactics, everybody. In the game, we had this. My opponent attacks. I capture with check. But now his knight is protected by this bishop. He moves up here to attack my rook. Now here, I thought, well, can I double my rooks up over here? But, well, it looks like I could. I was thinking, or can I not? No, it doesn't like that, because if I go here, we have this pawn pushing forward. Yeah, well, let me go ahead and show you. If I did something like that, well, now it looks like black is slightly ahead after c3. So here, you know, I thought, oh, well, if I capture this, the best move is to go to a1 here. But if I did that, they could just go ahead and capture here. And then, you know, if I capture, they're going to go ahead and capture here. And so then I'm just down a piece. You know, what would I do next? Try and move my bishop here and go after these pawns, I guess. But anyway, I did not want to go into all that mess. So now in the game, I retreat back. So we had this position. The king was attacking me. I retreat back to here. Now it says that's the best move. So they attack. Here it says best is to capture, which is what happened in the game. They recapture, of course. Now they're taking control of this open F file. And in the game, best would have been to push my pawn forward with this move. And then, let's see, the best thing for them to do, they can't go this way. Looks like that is the best move. And then, let's see, rook to g3, lining up on their bishop. Bishop to h4 attacking. And then second best is to capture with check here. The best move is to just go ahead and attack this bishop. And then they would come down here and check us, and they're protected by this rook. So that's, I don't know, pretty interesting, I guess. But let's finish up here. In the game, let's see, I'll go back a little bit. After we traded off rooks, I bring my other rook over here, and it says that's a miss. I should have just pushed this past pawn. So they capture, and it says that is a mistake now. That now it is plus 2.45 in white's favor. So we capture, and now you have this move, bishop to d2, trying to push this pawn forward. So I thought, oh, am I going to be in trouble here with this pawn pushing forward? So I had to do something about that. Let's see. It says I could have waited and just pushed this bishop up here to d4 and go after this pawn, and then I'll be able to push this bishop down here to d1 and guard this pawn from marching forward. So in the game, that's what I played, was bishop to d4 attacking. They start pushing forward, and then of course I have to go here to prevent this pawn from pushing and promoting. So they move up. That way they're not, this pawn that was under attack is not under attack now. And looks like king to f1 would be the best move. But I'm moving over here to try and exchange off this bishop, and go after this pawn. So they try and activate their king. And at this point, white has a winning advantage. So I attack. They move their king up. We trade off the bishops there. And then I start going after that pawn. But they go after this pawn. So I protect that. And it looks like it would have been better to not even worry about that. Well, I don't know. Here it's saying bishop to c2 is best. But it's also saying this h4 move is not bad. So we play this. I mean, I guess I could look at this h4 and see what they're talking about. They're saying that is best. Then after king captures, we have this pawn moving up here, attacking the knight. The knight will have to move. Then we go here, attacking the bishop, or excuse me, using the bishop to attack the king. And now if the king goes up here after this pawn, let's see, we just go ahead and capture. They would capture. Then we capture here, and we're going to have this other pawn marching up. So anyway, that's how the game could have gone. And so the final moves that we ended up playing was bishop up here to protect this pawn. They push forward to prevent me from moving. I capture, and now they try and activate their knight. So here I thought, all right, we have, let's look at piece safety. We have an unprotected knight here, and I thought there was a tactic to capture that knight. But at this point, the club, it was time to close up shop for the evening, and we were both probably trying to hurry and finish our game a little bit, and I just moved too fast. And my tactic, I didn't double check that this tactic would work, and of course it didn't. So I thought if they captured here, which they did, that I could just check them and then pick off their knight. But then I realized, oh no, the knight can just move and capture the checking piece. So then let's see what I should have done in the game. After they move here, looks like the best thing to do is D1 to swing over this way. But in the game, what if I went here instead? Then they would have this move. All right, and they'll be able to capture this. Looks like I should go there. They'll capture. I go up here attacking the knight. And then the knight goes to F4. Then we have a capture. And then, let's see, knight to E2. And it looks like they'll try and jump up here, maybe attack, harass the bishop. I don't know, maybe find a way to try and get to these pawns, but anyway, the game could have gone like this. So in the game, I make this mistake of giving up that pawn, and now I finally move down here to help protect this and activate my bishop. So they try and activate their knight. I jump here to use my bishop to cover all the squares that the knight could go to. But it looks like moving my king up here, the computer prefers that. So they try and reposition to jump down here and maybe go after this. So I just move my king up and they move their king up. And it says that's a mistake, and now it's +3 in white's favor. So let's take a look at that and see. Well, what they should have done is jump their knight forward with knight to E5, because then they could threaten to jump over here. Well, they can't do that because we would just pick them off and then go after that pawn. So here it recommends bishop to D3. So that's pretty interesting. Bishop to G4, king to D4. That might be an interesting move, although then they could just move up here and check us. So in the game, they played king to E5, and so let's see why that was such a big mistake. Well, now it's saying we should play bishop to G4 or H5. So we played bishop to G4, and then we're getting ready to go over here and attack these pawns. So they jump back here to cover that, and now the best move is bishop to D7, although it's saying king to F3 would have been good. And this is where we agreed to a draw because the chess club was closing for the evening. We can look and see what the computer says about how it may have continued. So they recommend this move, attacking, which is what I thought. And then wherever I move, he could just try and harass me if I go back and then try and go back up here. But it recommends if I do that to go here. So that's not what I expected. The king comes back. We move over to this side, getting ready to go after this. It recommends even going up there. King going after that. And they don't even protect. Well, okay, so let's go back. The computer's showing some crazy stuff here. All right, so let's see what the best moves are. After bishop to D7, they attack us. We retreat back. Let me make sure that this is where the game ended, and king to d6 is the best move, and that was what was played. Now, bishop to e8 or g4. So, I don't know. In the game, I probably would have just went here to g4. Well, then the king should come back to e5, and then let's see, king to f3. Now it recommends king to f6 and king to f2, e2, e3. What if we tried? Nah, that doesn't really do much. All right, anyway, if we go back to there, king to e5, I don't know, it looks kind of drawish, but let's try moving up here. King attacks us. Okay, now, what if we go up this way? Well, now it says king to e5 to prevent the king from coming into the position. All right, what about king to f3 to go after this? King to f6 to protect. King to g4. Now it recommends knight to c8. Then here threatening a fork. So d6 to prevent the attack of this pawn. And now we give this up. Anyway, the game ended in a draw. The video has gone on quite a bit, so I'll end it there. Just remember, before you make a move, check for the safety of your king, then your pieces, and then your pawns. So once you're sure they're all good, then look at your opponent's king, pieces, and pawns, and you may be able to find an unprotected piece or pawn or a checkmate opportunity when you do that. And by checking your own pieces, it'll hopefully prevent blunders, and just do a quick tactical check and make sure that there's not some one move tactic that could also cause problems as well. All right, everybody. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please go ahead and do so and support the channel. Feel free to leave comments, suggestions, or requests for anything you would like to see in the future. Thank you all for watching and have a super chess day.